Hello, everyone. Hello, 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 and welcome to another Living Room Community Art Studio live stream here on YouTube with me, Mary Kay. It's good to be here. It's good to be back. And just quickly, I want to say thank you to everyone and your patience for letting me take care of myself, having to reschedule and cancel a few things here and there due to the migraines I get. Not fun. But you know what? As humans, we deal with a lot of things in life. And for me, part of my bag of hammers is a little bit of the chronic pain. I know I'm not alone in that. But I just wanted to say thank you to everyone out there for being there with me. And hello. Hello, One Hummingbird Lane. And hello, Anthony. And hello to anyone else who might be out there watching or watching when we're archived, or maybe you're watching, but you can't type into the chat because you don't have a YouTube account. That's okay. Everyone is welcome here. And as always, I know some of you folks have heard that before. Hey, Vincent, welcome back. You've heard this. I'm going to do it anyways. Here's a little spiel for you. So, at the Living Room Community Art Studio, whether we're in person, at the Mobile Art Hive, at an event, or here online, we ask everyone to be super supportive of one another, encouraging, respectful, negotiate, consent, all of that good stuff. And we're very kind, usually to other people. But I'm going to remind everyone tonight that oftentimes we're very, very hard on ourselves. Hey, Kathy, it's so good to see you here. So, if you're having trouble tonight with the inner critic, and maybe I'm bringing it up a little bit because I am, I give you permission to talk back to it. You know what? You don't have to believe everything it says. If you need us to help, and I say us, me, the chat, anyone to help dealing with that little critter or critters or the choir of critics you might have inside your head, you just let us know and we'll do our best. You are welcome to create, to play, to do whatever you need to do to feel good, to help yourself feel better, to play, which is one of the themes we're working with tonight. We are working with the theme of play. And what I love about this theme is that I think it can come off really, oh, that's nice, play. But I think it's actually kind of a political thing. This is a radical revolutionary thing to reclaim play and creative play at that. So I'm really curious to know and to learn about what everybody's thinking out there about that theme and how you manage to infuse, hey, Laura, to infuse everything with play that you do, or how you find ways to reclaim it when you've been pulled away from it, or when you haven't really felt like playing, because there's a lot of stuff tied into this, right? So, how does play, what role does play play? Oh dear, oh dear, in your life and your creativity. And on that journey, I'm just going to remind folks to focus on the process tonight. This is a space, any art hive is a space where it's not so much about being the best artist you can be, having the best technique you can have, although we have so many gifted, extraordinary, hardworking people in our community, artists all. But it's often about letting go of that final destination and letting yourself enjoy the process of where things are at and how you find your way to where you want to go, knowing that we might end up somewhere else. Oh, lovely. There's some lovely chat going on. People saying hi. That's so great. Oh, and I see is Ashley may be here. Maybe. Oh, hello. Yes, right there. Now I see. Welcome. So here in Oshawa, it's lovely and sunny. I don't know what it is, what it's like where you're at, but oftentimes when it gets sunny, we all get super happy and warm and fuzzy. But I also want to make space for those of us who maybe are struggling tonight. That's why I mentioned the inner critic right off the top. There might be lots of reasons why that's happening, but self-care is important. So again, returning to the spiel, give yourself the time you need to do what you need to do. And if that involves creating for self-care, to let the art hold the hard stuff, please do that. If you need to reach out to me, to anyone in our community for resources or supports to help you through the time, please do. And just remember, again, we'll come back to that theme of play throughout the evening and what makes play important for you. So you know what? Oh no, the sun that has come out is like, yep, we're seeing results. Vincent saying sunburned real bad already. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. So, as I mentioned, self-care, number one. If you need to take a break, if you need to walk away, if you need to tune out the live stream, do something else. Whatever it is that works for you, do that. My feelings ain't going to be hurt, and you can always revisit this and come back once it's archived and enjoy it then, okay? But for now, I'm gonna get creating. I got a lot of stuff in my head, a lot of stuff in my heart, as I'm sure you folks do too. Let's create. Let's make. Let's spend some time in this really wonderful community we got going on here. Yeah? Okay. So the theme is play. The other theme, of course, is weaving. So weaving, there's so many interesting metaphors within that one thing as well. So I'm curious about how the kind of things you do to invest, infuse, regenerate, reclaim play in your process. I'm also really curious about how you feel about weaving. If you weave, what kind of things you weave, all of that stuff. And how you use all of this, how all of this might help with your self care, how it might help you build relationships or feel good about who you are, find relief when you don't feel so good about who you are. All of these things are important. And of course, self care after sun spray is good for those of you who have sunburns. Thanks for the top tip, Vincent. And Sandra, hello. Oh, we got a lovely little community going on here tonight. I'm going to be sharing some kinds of weaving that I like to do throughout the night. And then I'm going to be revisiting a piece that I pictured early on in the week. I was going to create something new from scratch and might still do that. You just never know. But I realized I feel called to elaborate. I feel called to finish something tonight. Just, to enjoy spending time with it and not having to race through it and build upon something that already exists in some way. So please feel free to share your weaving techniques, your stories about that process, what you enjoy about it. And if you have questions for me about any of the different kinds of techniques I have here, let me know. So we've got things like the weaving wheel. This is a kind of weaving I love. It's kind of an active meditation for me. A lot of you folks might already know it. Just a nice cardboard wheel. We have like with a hole in the center and then 8 notches around the wheel. And you fill it up with the 7 threads, leaving one notch empty. And what you get as you weave, as you move the threads around, let me choose a bigger one here. What you get is a lovely cord. And you can do this. What I love about this is that, yeah, you don't have to, once you get the hang of it, it's as I've heard from folks who know how to knit, it's just something you do, just something like breathing. So I hold onto that bottom, and then it's, if you can count to 3, you can do this kind of weaving. 1, 2, 3, and then you lift up that cord, and then you move it over to the empty slot. Turn, 1, 2, 3. And as you do this, you create the cord. It just kind of pops out the bottom there. And I love using these cords to do other weavings with. I love using these cords to stitch together to make trivets. Someone in the community taught me that. Who was it now? Oh, I can't remember. If anyone does remember, let me know. Because you can use it in all sorts of ways. I've had people in the community use them as shoelaces before, or to create macrame hangings. They're just really lovely. We're creating something new that can be used in lots of different ways. So this is, yeah, you see, you get the hang of it, right? And all you need for this, some yarn, some twine, some string, whatever you got. And then it's just moving that yarn around and you can create. I'll hold that up there. You can see that. So that's one form of weaving that I really love. Of course, you can, if you love using cardboard, you can create a loom. So I have these ones that we've laser engraved here, which I really love. But they're super simple. They're just pieces like frames with notches on them. But you can do the same thing with a piece of cardboard. Has anyone else out there done that? Done some cardboard weaving, some cardboard loom stuff? Super simple. And yeah, you don't need a whole bunch of fancy supplies. Although the living room, we do have a couple of looms in storage that we're going to be selling on as a fundraiser. So keep an eye out for that coming one day coming your way. Um, Weaving is something I love because it can be as complicated as you want it to be or as simple as you want it to be. I know I've seen some folks out there using embroidery hoops to weave as well, or CDs, and just using that outside frame to keep your yarn taut and weaving in and out and out. So that might look like using one of these guys, but instead of creating a cord, you just weave all around the circle, all around, like all along and around the spokes of the weaving loom you've created. This is all I'm going like heavy into some sort of weird intro tutorial thing, and it's not my purpose for tonight. I just wanted to share some of the things that I love about weaving. And as you see here, you don't have to use the whole loom either. What I love about this is that you can create little miniature looms that are just as effective. So this is a little work in progress I've got going on here. And I might come back to this tonight. Here's a little example that I actually made on a cardboard loom. And then I stitched some beads into it. And I thought that can make a nice, I was going to make it into a necklace actually. So, you just never know. And Kathy's saying, I've not done any weaving since I was a child. Yeah, it's funny that. And that kind of, for me, piggybacks a little bit on the other theme of tonight of play. So the last time a lot of us did something like this might have been when we were young. It might have been when we had a teacher in like junior school teach it to us, or kindergarten even, right? And Kathy's saying, I'm really interested in the weaving mats I've seen that are made out of milk bags. Not sure if anyone here is familiar with that. Oh, yes, indeed. The living room, we're familiar with that. And Sandra's saying, I'm weaving the ends in on my blanket. See, lovely, beautiful little things. And congratulations, Sandra. That's amazing. That seems to communicate to me that you've come to a place, like a still point with a project where it's coming, it's wrapping up, it's complete in some way to you. Congratulations. Um, Weaving, it's something we do every day in our lives, isn't it? We weave together the various threads of our life, of our existence, of all the things we do, of everything we are. We bring it into some kind of whole, some kind of cohesive form that allows us to keep going. So the idea of weaving within our own lives isn't so very far from us, I think. And we forget the artistry that's involved in that, the weaving, the many layers and threads that go into becoming who we are, into repairing when things have been torn or ruptured. Weaving is a part of everything we do. Um, but yeah, the weaving in reality, for a lot of us, it's something once upon a time it was essential to weave, and now not so much. So we've let it go. And oftentimes it is something that we only get a chance to do when we're a kid, right? So let's bring that back and let's talk about that idea of play and why it is so many of these wonderful, delicious things that we do we haven't done in a long time. What's preventing us from playing, folks? And Ashley's saying, I'm working on teaching myself to use Corel paint. So digital art forms are welcome here too. And that's a great reminder, actually, Ashley. You don't have to weave just because I'm weaving. You don't have to do that. Do what feels right to you. If you've got projects on the go, if you have other things that you're finishing or working on, like Sandra weaving the ends into her blanket, maybe you feel like writing or washing the dishes, whatever it might be, you're welcome to do that. There's a creative thread that runs through everything we do here tonight. And I think it's important to remind people of that just because you're not creating something in the same way that I'm creating it in, that's okay. And Sandra's saying, it's so nice to be here. It's so nice to have you here, Sandra. Welcome to everybody. And welcome again. Just another shout out to the folks who are maybe listening and watching along, but not able to participate in the chat. I'm glad you're here too. Just going to have a sip of tea before I dive in. So Kathy was asking about the milk bag loom weaving. Yeah, we have a big one at the we have one in storage right now that I think we're going to be bringing out for our neighborhood tours. It's a really satisfying process to be a part of. And yeah, what I love about it is that you take something that is going into the recycling, if you're lucky, trash if you're not, and you're transforming it into something that is practical and useful and unfortunately or unfortunately needed. Oftentimes, I know there's organizations that send them overseas. They call them milk bag rugs because or Canadian rugs, because Canada is one of the only countries that still uses milk bags for its milk instead of cartons or jugs. And so uh, we send these mats all over the world. We cut the milk bags into 3 segments, so they're like little loops, and then we tie them together to match the size of your frame. For ours, it's around 6 feet by, what is it? Folks, some of you folks have seen it out there. It's maybe 6 feet by 4 feet, maybe even taller than that, maybe 7 by 5. And you string it just like you'd string any loom with, the one you'd like tying together the milk bag loops like a big jumpsy chain and then stringing them across just like this. And I believe that's the weft. Someone out there is going to be yelling at me right now saying, no, it's the warp. I always, always confuse them. But once that's there, then you can weave the other milk bags, the milk bag strings you create essentially into it. And at the end, you get something that's really sturdy. It's food safe, so it's not releasing toxic gases into the air as much as some other bags would anyways. And these become things that people can use to lift, to sleep on. You can fold them and stitch them together to make cushions and different kind of furniture that can be used outside that's waterproof. They're really, really fantastic. And Ashley reminding me, no paint water tonight. Yeah, I don't have anything. My tea is safe. I'm not going to use it to wash off my paintbrushes. Let's see how much yarn I can dip into it, though. Why not? Let's be honest here. I think it would be a strange night if I got through it without doing anything. Slightly. I was going to say wonky because I'm just a wonky person. That's just the truth of it, and I don't mind. And of course, this weaving loom is just a picture frame that I've strung up everything on. It's an old picture frame from an old project that I did in the living room studio space a couple of years, like it made it maybe even 2018, 2000, early 2019. And I just love this. I love the idea of taking things that would otherwise become trash and turning them into something really kind of nice. I'm just using all sorts of found yarn, little odds and ends that we've collected over the years. Sometimes you find stuff that, is not enough to use in any project. Well, that's perfect for any kind of weaving project you have. And let me just trim this down right away. Yes, thinking about the living room space a lot tonight, thinking about it because we're getting our mobile art hive programming ready to go for the summer. So excited about that. I'm thinking about it too because well, you know what? Just a shout out to the folks over at Creating Space, one of our sister art hives in Peterborough. It looks like they've closed the doors to their art hive. And it gets me thinking just about the work that we do, the communities that we create together. And, a nice reminder for everyone that it's not always easy to do what we do. It's not easy to come into these spaces and create. There's a vulnerability that comes along with that sometimes, right? I'm not laughing at vulnerability. I'm laughing at the chat with Vincent saying that you got called the wonky one today by your mom. I think it might be a compliment. Just saying. And Ashley says that would be a slightly hairy tea. Yeah, it would be. It wouldn't be the first time I've mixed my fiber arts in my drinking beverage. But yeah, I just want to say I'm thinking about all the folks, the community at the creating space. I'm thinking about the folks who run that space and all the work that goes into running an art hive. And I'm sending loads and loads and loads of love. And all the doors have closed on the hive. You just never know where it will come again, right? When things would pop up, when it might see a new life. But what it is, what it can be important to do is to appreciate what we do have. So I'm going to appreciate the heck out of you folks tonight. And I'm going to enjoy hanging out. It's difficult. It's difficult to see Art Hive struggle. It's difficult to know that we can't do everything we want to do. And I think because we're somehow in the arts, there is this sense of it's easier work, you know? But it's not anyone here who is an artist, anyone here who creates, anyone here who has found a courageous way to embrace that vulnerability within your own life. The vulnerability that comes from making something, having the faith to follow through and try something. And then the courage to share it with someone. It's an extraordinary gift. Oh, wow. Vincent's saying, you inspire me to work on my painting when I wasn't going to today. Ah, I appreciate that. I'm glad. I'm glad. This is what Art Hive does, right? Would I be making anything if I wasn't doing this? I don't think so. After, you know what? It's so easy. It's so tempting to just turn on Netflix or in my case to, read another book. Nothing wrong with book reading. No shade, throwing no shade at that. I love a good book. But oftentimes it feels difficult to create. It feels like I think maybe it links back to this idea of play again and creative play. And if we're not doing something practical, then why bother doing it? If we're not doing something that someone else might see as being worthy or valuable, why are we doing it? And we kind of convince ourselves that it's too much work. to get started on something, or to return to something, to open up something, or just to, give it a go, to play. And that's a little sad, I think, but I think we can all relate to that. Oh my goodness, some appreciation. Or YouTube, yeah, watching YouTube, Vincent's saying. And Ashley, thank you. The appreciation that comes my way, I'm gonna take some for myself, like the sunshine. I'm gonna absorb some of it, just like that, and then I'm gonna reflect it back and share it with everybody out there. Because this wouldn't be anything without you. It would be just me talking to myself. I've done that before. I do it all the time, if I'm honest. But this is special time, and you give me an opportunity to create. I've said that before, and I'll say it again. This is as much for me as it is for anyone else. But I think it is important to just remember that what we're doing here is a choice that we've made to come together to create in our own space, to do what we need to do. And that's such a beautiful choice. But I appreciate that choice. And I want you to know how much I value that you've chosen to spend time with the living room. That's a lovely thing. And no pressure, though. No pressure. Do what you want to do. But it means something when we make time, when we protect time to do our own creative work, to play. So I'm going to turn it over to you folks again, because I'm talking a whole lot. What do we like about play? What does play mean to you when we bring it up in the context of art making or creativity or creative humaning, for that matter? What does play represent? What do you think of? Because it's not always easy to play. Kids can do play. We let kids play. We encourage kids to play. And that's something that came up in the Zoom group that we did this week, that there is this sense of play being something that kids do, and we can give ourselves permission to play oftentimes when we play with kids, but when we're just being us, when we're just doing our thing, do we make space for play? And I think there's YouTube is a good example, actually, or video games. There are ways we can play that don't necessarily involve making art. But, oh, interesting. But there is this really, really, it's a complicated relationship, I think, we have with play. A lot of us have with play. And Vincent saying breaking rules to make interesting words or works, autocorrect. I like that. I like that. And Vincent, that's a really wonderful, playful thing to do too. And it's something that I think does come quite naturally to kids, because I think it's impossible to talk about play without acknowledging the natural impulse that kids or young people have to play, to be silly, to experiment and explore, to do things simply because they can. That's one of the themes that came up. Simply because they want to. They're not waiting for anyone to give them permission. They're not waiting to learn how to do something. They just try it. They go for it. And I think I love that. And I love that about your work, Vincent, too, breaking the rules to make interesting works. And I think for a lot of us who have gone to any kind of art school or had any art training, that is something I hope we learn. Um, a lot of teachers will say, well, you have to learn the rules so that you know when you're breaking them, or you learn the rules so that you can break them later on. And yeah, I get that. I totally get that. But it would be a really interesting world, I think, wouldn't it? Can you imagine, what if in our art there were no rules? What if we didn't have to worry about breaking rules and we could just do whatever it was we wanted to do? Safety first, obviously, but I wonder what that kind of world would look like if we weren't so concerned with art becoming something or being something or having to look like something or sound like something. What if we were just creating for the heck of it, not having to even think about the rules, right? And Sandra's saying, I go to Niagara Hospice. Oh my goodness. Oh, that's wonderful though. I go to Niagara Hospice on Wednesdays. Sandra's sharing on Wednesday mornings, and we sometimes do crafts. That's amazing. So, and when you're there doing that, how does that feel? Like that is, I think there's something, like when I hear that, I feel joy. I feel that there is this extraordinary, like what a life force. And I can only imagine, Sandra. I can imagine just the kind of world, the kind of conversations, the kind of laughter that's going on in that space. I can hear you. I can hear you in my mind. Right? It's there's something affirming about life affirming, about making, about creating, about playing, um, just because we can for no other reason, right? And Nikki saying, "Hey, Nikki!" Play represents a time when we are free to express ourselves without judgment and to create using what we are using with what we are feeling. The use of happy colors or darker ones when we dot 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 when we are not so good. Yeah, I love that too. That play, and that's something again that came up in our conversations. The sense of in the Zoom group. Again, so appreciative of those conversations, which serve they're like points of departure for me that everything that I bring to this group comes from another group of folks who come together and spontaneously create and talk with one another. I think using that like freedom was that was huge, the word that kept coming up, freedom to create, to express ourselves. And that sense of expressing ourselves is about authenticity, isn't it? About reconnecting with something authentic, about who we are, who we want to be, who we feel and know and feel best being as we move through the world. That creativity can sometimes represent. And represent it like also in how we present ourselves and how we become ourselves. Without play, without giving ourselves permission to play, I don't know if that happens. I don't know if it happens as easily, right? Being able to ask ourselves that magical what if. What do I want to do with this? Let's see. I'm going to play with this. So I've got this, I don't know where this came from, this kind of nylon cord. I think I've got some pantyhose mixed in here as well. You know what? You can repurpose anything for art. And Vincent saying it was so, so, so cool when you came to talk to my class in college. Oh, so that would be, wow. Yeah, the community collaboration course. We still do that. I'm still really lucky. Uh, Danny Crosby, they still let me come back to their class. And every year we create something new together. And it's interesting to see. This is also interesting on the theme of play. And might as well throw in the idea of weaving in there too, intergenerational play and through the arts coming together. Because I often find myself when I go to talk to Danny's classes, I find myself wanting to be very serious and wanting to be very artsy. And I think it's a sense of me, there must be a part of me that feels like, oh, maybe I'm not. I gotta bring something to this party. I can't just show up and be my weird self. I've got to bring something official and valuable of worthiness to this group. Um, because it's in college, gosh darn it. And you want everyone to sense that, you just want to be, I don't know, offer something important. And inevitably, something ends up happening that the students always remind me of in what they choose to do as a part of their each one teach one or their skill shares. Um, that for them, the thing that they want to do more often than not, what they want to share with the community isn't necessarily complicated thesis oriented artwork. It's often very simple. It's play based. It's getting back to a place that is pleasure full and just for the sake of creating because you can. It's not necessarily, it's it's not complicated, or I mean it is complicated. What do I mean to say here? This is an interesting thing. I think in its simplicity it is profound. And sometimes we forget that, yeah, you don't have to reinvent the wheel to connect and to spark radical transformation in one another. It can be something like creating a coloring page or drawing someone or paint by numbers. I think someone this year, Vincent, created a blanket fort that we could crawl into in the center of the pit at Durham College. Things like that are so inspiring. And some shout outs, so there's some love in the chat for Sandra being here, which is lovely. And Sandra says it's nice to socialize and get out of the house. And that group at the hospice they must be so happy to have you there. My goodness. I wonder what kind of crafts you do. What kind of play do you do there? Inquiring minds want to know. Oh yeah, Vincent, that class, like coming in to speak with your class was, I think you were the first one, and it was the beginning of something really amazing. And Vincent saying, I don't like to think about how long ago college was. Yeah, no, that happens, doesn't it? It's amazing how time flies. It's also amazing everything that we managed to accomplish together. I think it's sometimes nice to look back and to say, wow, okay, this is looking at those markers in our own lives and recognizing what we've done, how we've grown, who we are now, appreciating that past self. And this is for anyone. School doesn't necessarily have to play a role in it at all. I think sometimes just looking back at that self that got us to this point where we are and appreciating that past self, no matter how old it might make you feel. Oh, nice. So Sandra's saying we did stuffed hearts this week. A good stuffed heart, right? Nothing, like can't sneeze at that. Hearts are, as you know, Sandra, one of the go-to motifs for me. Go-to motif. And as I weave, I'm reminded, I'm kind of glad that I chose to pick up this one instead of starting something from scratch because I do forget how long weaving takes in a good way because it's serious play that slows me down, that grounds me, forces me to really consider as I go. Mindful art making, mindful making. Is anyone else out there weaving? I can't remember. Hey, Kim, and hey, facilitator, fascinator. Nice to see you again. And Kim, welcome. Kim saying, hi, Mary. So excited you were doing weaving. We will be doing that on May 20th for a local community event. Great to see it in action. I am all about play. Well, then come on, share, share, share. What is it? And then again, putting it back out there for everyone again. Why is play important? Why is it something that we should protect and make space for and not wait for the kids to lead the way, although it's always nice if they do? What does play look like for us now? And, you know, being mindful of the fact that there are a lot of folks out there, unfortunately, who haven't been able to play in their lives, who haven't had those experiences at all. There are certain things that some of us, like myself, might take for granted, that everyone, has finger painted before, for example. These are things that you think everyone's had an experience of, but maybe not everyone has for lots of different reasons. It could be, you know, they didn't have time to make art because they had to go home and take care of their siblings. Maybe they had to go to, had a job they had to go to. Maybe culturally or, uh, where someone was from, it wasn't seen as something of value or worth, or it was seen, you know, like child's play, right? There comes a time where I think in culture and society, there is this feeling like, oh, we got to grow up now. We have to leave that behind. But it's interesting, not everyone does. And I think oftentimes, some people find ways to build play into their life. Like there's a lot of dudes I know who love going golfing, and that takes priority. But I think a lot of us don't give that time for ourselves in some ways. So, oh, Kim was saying, oh, funny, you were going to say you were excited to watch the replay to see the beginning process of this. No, I'm sorry. I picked up, you know what? I talk so much during these. I realized if I wanted to play with this a little bit more and add and embellish to it, I was I was going to finish a project that I started a while ago, and then I'm going to add to it. And I think I'm going to leave it on the picture frame. So what I love about picture frame weaving is that the frame you choose can play a part in what you create. It speaks to the rest of the piece, which is nice. And a great way to use up old frames that might get left behind otherwise. And what am I going to do here? I'm going to do a little loop, I think. And this is spontaneous. This is rough and ready. This is Mary just creating because. Am I a master weaver? No, I'm not. Not at all. But there are things I like to play with. Ah, play, right? So there's an interesting thing. Okay, so in my mind, somehow there is this sense of play being juxtaposed, or play being the opposite of being something mastered, like an art form that has been mastered, that you know how to do in an expert way. That's interesting. And I think that's a nasty kind of assumption that still sneaks into my mind and my process every once in a while. Why is it that those two are opposites in my mind? And Vincent saying, oh, just on the finger painting. Finger painting was the first pure art cave painting. You got it, right? Like this, that's what we had. These were our paintbrushes. That's what we did. And I'm sure even before we had paint, we were tracing things, either tracing things in the sky or tracing things in the sand. I think we still do that, right? We still find ways to create like that. And then Kim saying, oh, I love this. I am childlike. I take it as mostly positive, although possibly I am emotionally stunted. I feel like it keeps me young at heart. And I love the picture frame idea. Haven't seen before. Oh, yeah, here, I'll do a close up. So, yeah, just in case folks can't. I think it came to us because at the studio one day, we happen to have a big donation of picture frames. And oftentimes I think it's like nothing special, right? Sometimes you get stuff that's a little bit broken or wonky. Wonky, there's that word again. Things that maybe you can't use for what they are. And this was a batch of picture frames we had. So use it as a loom, right? A really nice, affordable loom. And then people have an option. Of course, you can cut it off and use it as a traditional weaving. But I kind of like the idea that when this is done, I'll just be able to hang it on the wall. Just be able to let it be just like that. Where is this going? Let me try using these. I'm going to double up these threads and loop them around the weft. Am I getting that right? Yeah, yeah, definitely not an expert. Which is maybe another pin we should make. Should we make a pin that says not an expert? And yeah, Kim's saying also like to see you not having to use a needle or weaving tool. Yeah, sometimes things can get in the way like that, like the expectation that we have to have those tools in order to do something. As long as, I mean, some folks might not be able to use their fingers if you don't have the dexterity. In that case, a crochet hook or a rug hook might help just to pull things through. Um, Another cheat I like to use is if depending on the size of things, I use a chopstick to kind of squish everything down to put in between the thread, or a ruler. So for those of you who are out there who are looking at weaving and experimenting with things, you can go out and you can buy fancy kits. You can buy really nice looms. You can find a lot of nice looms that people have, with all best intentions, thought they were going to get into weaving and then realized that it may not be their jam. You can find a lot of interesting things out there on in the virtual kind of garage sale lands. But you can also just use what you have around. And if you don't have yarn, again, like Kathy was mentioning, like use plastic bags. Like these are nylons that were cut up, and I think fabric. I think I've got some green fabric here that I'd like to weave. Take tiny little strips and weave in. Using whatever you have at hand, using paper to weave into this, or wire. You can get. Oh, do I have any wire here? There must be some wire on my desk. I might, put some beads on the wire and then weave it into this and see what happens. Lots of lovely things you can do. And you don't need a lot of fancy tools. And if you have a really big picture frame, that's a nice community project right there, to do a community weaving on the picture frame. Something that anyone can just add into whenever they pass by and they have a hard time resisting. It's really hard to resist adding color or texture to something. I'm just going on now. Let's see. And Kim saying, yes, yes, yes. And Fascinator, not an expert, but a professional. I like that. I think, well, we can all be professionals. We're all professionals at something. All. Maybe that's a subject, a theme for another night, because I don't know what exactly makes a professional. And maybe I don't want to know. Maybe I don't want to know. Yeah. I think learning to live in a place of not being an expert is an important thing for a lot of reasons. Because it can be, we live in a world that has expectations and wants to see certain things in certain ways, but it doesn't necessarily represent who we are or our value or our worth. So I always get a little like antsy around that kind of stuff, you know? We all have lived experience, we all have wisdom, we all have things that we've learned and paid to learn and learned from wonderful people in our lives. I suppose it's how we use those learnings that really counts at the end of the day. Oh, I want, oh, see, this is where fabric scissors, will you cut? Yes, thank you very much. But it would also be nice, Kim, on that note, to do like a weaving video and then speed it up after to see everything come together. That would be nice too. And Kim saying we will use we will use cardboard on May 20th, circles and rectangles. Yes, I have chopsticks. We'll include those. Oh, so cool. Big frame community project. Well, there you go. Take it. I want to see what, well, I'll just look for the picture up on your page on Cass. I'll look for that. So for those of you who don't know, Kim also runs an art hive in the States. So another celebration and shout out to art hives. Near the beginning of this stream, I was talking about just honoring another art hive out here in Peterborough that looks like it's closed its doors because of a lack of resources, not necessarily art supplies, not community resources, but just the support that facilitators and like need to be able to hold space and do the work and also probably, sometimes it's about paying the rent. We're all struggling in lots of different and interesting ways. And so we appreciate what we have. And I appreciate folks like Kim out there who are doing the work and bringing the vision and exploring interesting ways to connect and to keep that creativity going with the community. It's a beautiful thing. It's not a narrow path, what we do. Being an artist is not a narrow path. So, and I'm also excited to see that so much weaving is happening out there in the community. That is an interesting thing. And I can't remember who recommended this to go into the hat. And Fascinator saying even Neil Buchanan from Art Attack would say in the show that you don't have to be a great artist, just have fun. And I say, yes, absolutely. I I think there is something. Pleasure is important. Joy is important. And I think the culture that we lives in, that we live in, that we lives in, the culture that we lives in, how we live right now, oftentimes it's not a healthy thing. It's not. We don't live in a healthy way. We set aside those things. We set aside our pleasure. We prioritize the needs of others, sometimes even the needs of folks who are not worthy of it, not worthy of our care and our attention and our energy, our creative energy. So taking time to recognize how important play is, that it's not silly, it's not childish. And well, on that note, as Kim was saying, what's wrong with being childish? It's not. It is incredibly important. It is incredibly valuable. It's incredibly healthy and rejuvenating and essential to any kind of innovation in our own lives, in our self care, which is another reason why I'm going to be taking a break next week. And then for the next, I think, well, about a week and a half, I'm back on the 25th, but taking a break to take care of myself and get back to a place where I can access that play a little easier in my day to day life. And Fascinator saying the Spanish hosts of Art Attack would say the same thing, but for every episode as it's a tagline. See, there you go. It's so important that it's built in. We need to remind ourselves of this every day. Like literally every episode, Fascinator says they would say that. Well, you don't have to be a great artist, just have fun. And what is a great artist anyway? What does that even mean? Mm. And Vincent saying, oh my goodness, Vincent. So sometimes things come up and I start reading them and then I realize, oh no, Mary, no, slow down. Vincent saying, my mouse Louis passed away yesterday after struggling with medical issues, and part of my coping with loss is to draw a portrait in memory. That's beautiful. That's so beautiful. And some nice condolences coming from the community. So, it's funny. Then that was another theme that came up. The joy that sparked the fantastic teachers that our fur family or our scale family or fin-winged, feathered families give us, that they remind us oftentimes to play. And I'm so sorry. And for anyone else experiencing loss right now, I want to extend that to you as well. And sending you lots of love, lots and lots of love. And it makes my heart so happy to know that you're creating something to honor Louis. Ah, oh, Louis. That's lovely. I think making art in honor and memorial, and it's such an important process. And it's a special one too. I make time for that. That's something I've always done and will continue to do, because the gifts that animals give us, oh my goodness, nothing compares to that, really. Nothing at all. Oh. And of course, you've always had fantastic animals, Vincent. For those in the last stream that we did that Vincent was at, I have very, very fond memories of Vincent's rats making art at the studio with us. Little tiny feetsies and nailsies, like in paint, walking around the paper making art. It was a beautiful thing. But our hearts are with you. Oh, wow. So again, people are working on lots of interesting things out there. And oh, I just love this lovely support that's coming at the community. It's a nice thing. More than nice. More than nice. Yeah. Well, if you want to share a picture or share anything about Louis, actually, Vincent, you're more than welcome to do so. I'll post a little picture of this probably, maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow, just to get it up there. And after, if anyone has images of what you're working on that you'd like to share, feel free. And like a show and tell. And I know sometimes it takes me a while to get the show and tell photo up, but you're more than welcome to. Or you can even post stuff under the photo of the paper weaving, the paper heart weaving that I posted earlier tonight. And Kim saying, can I ask, when you get to the end of one piece, do you tie the next one onto it? Sometimes I don't. It really depends on my laziness. And kind of because I'm never quite sure what I want to do with that end piece, and I can tuck it in afterwards. So if I have a little tiny end, instead of tying it to the next one, I'll tuck it in. It depends sometimes too, because with weaving, you might want to have layer upon layer, and that just like a straight, like a kind of like a back and forth kind of thing like this, and that's okay. Nothing wrong with that. But sometimes I love doing things that are a little offset, a little wonky, for lack of a better term. I like creating different shapes and or going around in loops and things like that. So in that case, you might not want to tie things together. You might just want to hop in the center and start from there and then build around it. I would just like encourage the playfulness with it, to treat it uh, like you are painting with string or yarn or tinfoil, whatever your weaving mediums happen to be, to just play with tying things onto the weft sometimes. Nothing wrong with a straightforward weave. That's how fibers are often made, but in textiles and things like that. But I think it can be really fun to play with different shapes and forms and like building things up in like to 3 dimensions. It's really interesting that way. So I don't always tie my threads together, and sometimes I let them hang out or create fringe as well. That's a fun thing to do with weavings. And Vincent saying, my mom and I are going to get 2 baby mice after some healing time. Oh, wonderful. Mice are super, super, super cute. Of course, I know not everyone has a good relationship with them, especially if they're, sharing your place without paying rent. Uh, and I have a memory being in college and waking up in the really horrible apartment I was renting. I loved it, but it was a horrible apartment. And waking up and there just being a little mouse on my pillow next to my face, just staring at me. Super cute, but also slightly scary, unexpected. Not the mouse's fault, not mine, just a surprise. But miceys, oh my goodness, yeah, super, super cute. And oh, Fascinator saying living room community heart studio. Oh, maybe that's a tote bag. Maybe we got to do something with that. Maybe that's a pin. Thank you for that, Fascinator. And Vincent saying, Louis was very sweet, wanted to be on my shoulder or in my hands 100% of the time. And ran on a saucer wheel when he was outside of the cage. A saucer wheel? Oh, Vincent. It sounds like you gave Louis such a fabulous life. I think that, if you don't mind me saying, I know you were lucky to have Louis in your life, but I think Louis was lucky to have you in their life. That is a beautiful, beautiful existence. By the sounds of it, just exceptional. And now Vincent's cat gets spoiled for a bit. Yeah. That love, nothing really, that's good love. That's good love. Good medicine, I imagine some folks might say. And Kathy says, mice are definitely cute. They are so cute. So cute. Well, maybe I'll do a little, maybe this weaving will be, I'm going to weave as the other thing I like about weaving is depending on how we're weaving and what we talk about when we're weaving. So there's something about weaving that slows me down, that reminds me of process the whole time. Because obviously product, I mean, depending on what we're aiming for here, there is, it is what it's going to be. It is what it is, right? Um, so there's something that happens when I weave, and if I'm having conversations or if I'm thinking mindfully about something or in that interesting way where my brain just opens up to play and that makes space for more creativity, I feel like the conversations, the subjects, the themes of what we're sharing here go into this piece. So this piece spans years for me. It's not just one piece, it's many years and it's so many different conversations. And now in this section here, we're weaving in thoughts of Louis, we're weaving in thoughts of the community, showing that support and honoring the loss and the love that's gone into creating that life for this little creature in your world. That's a beautiful thing, right? I'm I feel very, very privileged to be a part of conversations like this. And Vincent saying, Louis was a rescue. The rescue told me he lived with 50 mice in one container. My goodness, he was very happy, Vincent says, despite health problems. My goodness, that was a difficult life he had. I imagine quite a stressful one. So thank goodness he found you. Thank goodness. And Fascinator saying earlier, I mentioned that I was working on the interior model of and I'm going to just say the number, I'm going to just say the thing, IL-76, but I've only just shared an exterior model pic because I've yet to complete the cockpit. That's fantastic. That was a few weeks ago on Facebook. So if you look back, folks, again, just a reminder of that show and tell piece. It's also worth checking in the comment sections of the photos that we post for the live stream because we might be sharing pictures or links to other things we've created. And Fascinator does these extraordinary things with, I think it's, again, I always stumble over this because I always want to say like models, but it's not really. It's so much more than that, and um, creative explorations of like there's so many things that go into these pieces, technologically, digitally, as well as form and shape and all of those things. They're quite extraordinary. So check them out, folks, if you have a chance to scroll back in time to look at those photos. And Kim saying that is so beautiful. Your explanation, about the process of this piece of weaving. Well, am I the only one who feels that? I think sometimes, I mean, what we create and how we create and who we create it with informs everything. And I think it's important to honor that. And once it's named and once it's out there, then we know. And so we can be more aware or not of what we create and how we create and who we create it with, you know? I mean, it would be very different if this was a miserable conversation and everyone here was horrible, you know, then what would happen? What would happen with it? Well, an interesting experiment that I don't really want to try. But I do think who we create, how we create it impacts and shapes what we create. And it's also a nice reminder to myself, anyways, that work in progress and work in processes are really important because when we step away and return, there's so much more in it than just the thing we're creating. There's memories embedded in each piece, layers of experiences and conversations and relationships. And there are people that I was creating with alongside down here that I haven't seen in years. And there are people here that I was creating alongside with here who are in this chat tonight. Someone like Sandra, right? Oh, Sandra saying, ooh, adventures. Sandra ventured into Toronto yesterday to see my cousin's art show, and it took a lot out of you. I'm so sorry. It is traveling always takes a lot out of, us in the best of times. But what a fantastic reason to travel, Sandra. You got to tell us how the art show was. And be honest. What have I done? Kathy says, I must head out now. Thank you for a nice evening. I did a Zentangle weave pattern. A weave pattern, see, it doesn't have to be with yarn, it can weave drawing. I did a Zentangle weave pattern tonight, and Zentangle is a meditative doodling. I do love a good Zen doodle. They're fantastic. Well, if you want to share it with us, Kathy, please feel free. And thank you for being here. And have a wonderful night. In fact, when I look outside right now, it's, at least here in Oshawa, it looks beautiful. The sun is just setting below the roof of the building next to me. The leaves are beginning to bust out everywhere. There's green everywhere. And it is warm. So, quite frankly, I don't know why anyone is on this live stream. Why aren't you outside enjoying the evening? Well, maybe soon. And Vincent saying, working on detailing on animals and fairies in my painting today. This picture, this painting is extraordinary. Vincent shared an image of this work in progress the last time we had a live stream as well, which was, again, not last week, but the week before, I think. So there's a little bit of jump in time. If you haven't had a chance to check it out, go to Facebook, go to the last live stream that we did, and maybe the pre-post, and check out this extraordinary mixed media painting. It's beautiful and big, and just, it's a story I want to step into. It is extraordinary. And Kim saying, I've just never thought of that before. Excited to have that idea in my heart as I continue to create with my community. Kim, I'm so excited then. And I'm very curious to see how working with that uh, shifts things or alters things or impacts things. I mean, it might not, right? But I know that once it's introduced, it's kind of this thing I feel about Art Hive in general and loving ourselves and being creative and finding our way back to a kind of authentic creative expression within ourselves. That if, it has as much to do with how we create as what we create, and the thing we create is often very, not as important as we thought it might be in the end. But there's trusting the process. It's a phrase we throw around quite a lot. Trust the process. But I think if we put that intention out there, it may not show up in the moment. You may not be able to see by looking at something, but I think everyone who is sharing that creative space will take a piece of that with them in their work. And when they come back to it, it will be there. It will find its way through the creative human to the heart of the matter somehow. But if we don't make space for that, if we don't honor it, if we don't say it, acknowledge that this is something that we can do in this process, if people want to, then it's something that can be missed, I find, right? It doesn't hurt to put it out there, see what people think, right? You just never know. And Fascinator saying, my childhood had a bit of, so interesting. So childhood and then play and childhood, of course, those links are there. Fascinator saying, my childhood had a bit of an influence because I used to see plenty of planes like that back at Sharjah. Am I saying this right? Sharjah? Is that right? Would I be saying that right? So the things we see, and Fascinator saying the youngest of which was built in the 1990s. So beautiful planes, things that kind of embed maybe not nostalgia, but just like very powerful, potent images, and I imagine sounds and the way they move. Again, creating from that place where we involve the story of our lives, the things that have influenced us, that let us get back to a sense of play, that help us keep working even when it's really hard to do stuff. I think play is an energizer in that way, an absolute energizer. And if we can just reframe things sometimes, at least that's what I have to do for myself. Does anyone else have to reframe something that feels or is beginning to feel like work, a little bit like drudge, a little resistance in there? If we can find a way to reframe it as something that is playful, experimental, explorative. There we go. Somehow it becomes different, and we can find our way through again. Oh wow! And Fascinator saying the sun is just rising here in Lahore. These travels, that's extraordinary too. So wonderful to know that people are joining from so many different parts of the world. That's wonderful. Just imagining you there right now. How wonderful. And thank you. Thank you for joining us. Say hello to Lahore for me. One day I might get there. One day I hope I do. And oh, it's a very dark blue. So in the morning, as the sun is rising, before the sun rises, it's a very dark blue. That's what I was trying to go for here, I think, up here, that midnighty, not midnight, no, it's something deeper than that. And again, look at this. So the hour is almost up. It is up. And yet I have yet to finish this. Do you see how interesting and how much time it can take to create something like this? And again, part of it is just enjoying this conversation with everybody. And Sandra's saying, it's amazing to see his work in person and the other artists who are participating. So this is about your cousin at the arts show. Beautiful artwork at the Toronto School of Art. Love it. And oh, thank you for letting me know. I had the right pronunciation of Sharjah. That's good. I'm going to run around saying it like I know what I'm talking about. And that's a bit dangerous, I think. Yeah, going to see an art show. I haven't, there's an art show right now in Oshawa for the third year community collaboration class for that thesis class. Um, the one that actually, if I remember correctly, Vincent won an award at when I went to see it. It's a graduating kind of cumulative experience for all the fine arts students at Durham College. And I have yet to make it out, so I really, really want to. If you are in Oshawa and you haven't had a chance to go see it, I think it's on for a few more days. Um, get out there. Get out there with me. Let's go see some art and appreciate some of the creativity. And getting out to be able to see any kind of creativity, that's a beautiful thing. So what I wanted to do with this piece, and it's amazing that I will continue working on this. It's amazing that it is making me take time with it. It's like the art is saying, slow down, Cronert. Give yourself time. You don't have to finish this. What I want to do, I can tell a little story about this here, is, you know what, I'll save that. I'll save that for the final bit. And Fascinator saying, yep, I said it right. That's good. And if it were the winter, the sky would have still been pitch black in Lahore. Yeah. I mean, it's the same in Canada. My goodness. We have, at least here, it gets very dark and it's very difficult sometimes. I think one of the reasons why we're a little punch drunk on the sun we've been having the last few days, because we've been moving through the darkness. It feels like we've been moving through the darkness for a long time. And it's really, really nice to have that sun, to feel the warmth, to recognize that things are growing and the seasons do change. It is lovely. And that change is possible. So let's bring it back to the play. Let's bring it back to play and weaving if you like, but no need to talk about the weaving if it's not something that's resonating with you. What I would love to, oh, Kim saying Kim's got to go, but it's great spending some time. Great spending some time with you too, Kim. We'll be signing off soon. So thank you so much, Kim. See you later. Have fun with the weaving with your community. I'd love to just, ask if anyone has final thoughts on play and the importance of play and the role it might play in your life and what you might, how you might want to protect it or reintroduce it or prioritize it. For me, I can lead the way. It's something that I think I need to make more space for. I think I need to give myself permission to play more with the work that I do and play more in how I think. Because I think also when I'm creating art, it's easier to tap into that childhood freedom. But my thought process is kind of still imprisoned in this idea, as I brought up earlier, that play is not of value, that it is not worthy, and that I have to be perfect and things have to be done in a certain way for a specific reason. I don't think I'm alone in that. So I think that's part of my goal, is to, with regards to creativity and art, whatever kind of art it might be, to liberate my mind, to get back to a place of play and playful exploration and permission to let that like just filter into every other part of my life, not just the things I make or how I make or who I make them with them, but just to have that there and to remember that it's important and that it starts with my thoughts. It starts with, yeah, it starts with what I think about. Vincent saying my thesis, oh yeah, my thesis was shown at the Robert McLaughlin originally and then moved to Whitby Station Gallery, and it won Juror's Choice Award. It included human hair, clothing, and body prints, and it was about Vincent's identity. Oh, I remember. It was extraordinary. Extraordinary. And again, at the same time, very playful, if you don't mind me saying. It was full of, I knew, like, you could see there was great thought, there was great intensity, and it was playful, and there was joy present. There was a sense of liberation in that piece. Just that thing that we were talking about with, how play can help us reconnect again with what it means for us to feel, to be authentically who we are. What a fantastic thing. And Fascinator saying, I like how what you're making kind of reminds me of those simple, non-mattress beds that there are in Lahore, the frame and the way in which the bed sheet is threaded to it. That's interesting. I never knew that. It's like that, but minus the bed legs. So it would be up. Well, as folks are thinking, I will sign off soon because, as you know, I am a horrible timekeeper, and it is beautiful out there, and I want folks. Fascinator. It's early morning for you. I'm sure you got to get up and do some stuff. For anyone though, there's the thing we hear, the refrain that came up in the Zoom as well. This go outside and play, a thing that a lot of us heard in childhood. Get outside and play. So if you can get outside and play, or get outside and contemplate play, or look outside, or just take some time. Take some time just to let the whimsy re enter your world, to inform something for yourself. I welcome you to it. To me, that's something that play can do. And that's right. Yeah, the play that comes into art often leads to innovation, and Vincent's pieces were definitely innovative. Vincent says there was a self portrait with Vincent's actual mohawk, the hair shaved off for the art. Um, Talk about integrating yourself into the work. I think that is a classic example. The art was you, and you were the art. And perhaps a metaphor for everything and anything that we create, whether or not it actually has our DNA in it. So important to have that experiment, that create, and yeah, those pieces were entirely playful and wonderful and modeled such gorgeous, delicious courage to everyone else that was there. Courage, yes, in the subject matter, but also, I feel more importantly, in just the risk taking, the creative play, the creative risk taking that was involved in saying, what if? What if I did this? What would that look like? What would it be like? What would it say if I tried this? How would it communicate? All of those things that I imagine went through your mind. And then you did it. It could have been easy. It might have been just as easy to not do it. And yet you chose to invest in that process for yourself. And that is extraordinary. And thank you. I'm getting that lovely permission. If my worrying about keeping time, you know what? When people miss art hives, it's okay. It's and I give myself the same permission. Sometimes I think we compare this what we do to it's easy to get caught up with the kind of corporate model of what things are and what things are and what they should be. And oh no, you missed an art hive. Well, that's what happens sometimes, when we need to take a break, when we get caught up or stuck in something else. I think it's a beautiful thing to be able, hopefully, a beautiful thing to model to everyone. You know what? I'm doing my best to take care of myself, and I want everyone else out there to do the same. I think we can model that for one another. We can show one another the various ways we do that. And that's one of them. So don't worry if you're not a good timekeeper. That's what I'm going to tell myself. And you know what? You just never know what happens in those time periods where time is taken off. Something extraordinary can happen. And I will enjoy taking the next few weeks off. So just a reminder to folks that I'm going to be taking a break for the next couple of weeks. And we're going to be coming back with a new schedule for live streams and Art Hive Zooms because summer programming is going to start. And that is going to be its own exciting adventure. And I can't wait to share more of that with everyone. All right. So I'm just going to. So this is just a sort of example of what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be weaving in some pieces of fabric into this piece. And I don't know if you can see that. Let's see if I can lift that up. Just exploring with more texture, with more fabric, layering things in. I think I want to do some beadwork, and I think I'm going to use some of the wire to do that so that I can stand them up and twist them around and maybe create some shapes in here. And I want to highlight this sky. And the thing that happens sometimes with sunsets or sunrises, I imagine, where they just become pink and orange and all these extraordinary colors that you just wouldn't think about left to one's own devices, unless you really spent time with the sunset, which is something I'd like to do over the break. Uh, just taking time to play with this piece. And oh, there's a few buttons that you can see in there, right? I think I'm going to add some more buttons, some more beads. And hopefully, you know what? Maybe I'll bring it back and show you when it's all complete, once it's all really, really done. So watch the space. I will share another picture of this, and I'll probably spend some time working on it tonight and tomorrow. As is often the case, when I log off, I end up spending more time up here making anyways, just because I can't pull myself away, because it's fun, because it's playful, and it's you folks that give me the opportunity to do that. But I'm loving everything about this community. I'm so appreciative of the time we spend together and all the things we create together. But more importantly, it's how we create those things together. And sometimes the things aren't even things, it's the creative conversations, the things that you spark in the way I think and the way I see the world. I appreciate every single little bit. And I love sharing the stories. I love hearing about where you are and what you think about the themes as well. And tonight being about play, there were some serious things. We had some meaningful moments and things having to acknowledge the tender spots within our own lives. And I guess I'm just encouraging everyone, I'm not the boss of you, but I'm inviting everyone to take care of themselves wherever you might be, whatever kind of period of your day you're entering into. Please take some time to check in with yourself as you go along and recognize perhaps those moments where you do need a little bit more play or want a little bit more play just because, and see how you can make space for that, because it is a healing, beautiful thing to do. You know what? I'm just going to say that that is an absolute fact. Play is healing. It lets us move forward and shake things off and see the world with new eyes, see ourselves with new eyes. So, what the heck? I'm just going to say that. Play is healing. Come at me. And thanks everyone so much. And there's lovely thoughts and in the comments there. And you know what, Vincent, there's a thank you for being an inspiration and sharing yourself right back at you, right back at everyone who participates in these chats. Thank you to the folks who are listening and not chatting. Thank you to the folks who are watching but not able to chat because maybe you don't have a YouTube account, whatever it might be. I love that fact that you're here. To the folks who watch us when we're archived, it's all amazing. Wherever you're at in the world, I am appreciative of you and what you do. And of course, if you love what we do, just a reminder, you can support us on Coffee. It's always a bit of a hustle running an art hive and finding ways to convince a world that may not understand or see what is happening as a value, that it is of enormous value, not because of me, but because of what folks like you create and contribute. So if you have some time, if you have a few dollars and you want to buy us a coffee to support the project, go for it. And if you don't, that's okay too. You're still welcome here. That's why we do what we do, to come together to create this kind of wonky magic. So have a wonderful night, everybody. Take care. And I'll see you in a few weeks with another live stream coming your way. Bye, everyone. And thank you. Thank you again for being awesome. Bye, everybody.